been playing with the Modal SKULPT for quite a while now. It's a really deep little synth. It's the SE version I've got here, and that's essentially exactly the same as the original version, I think, except for it's got a new body on it. It's a bit slimmer, and we touched the sides. I think it was a stimming review I saw where he's touching the sides and it kept on triggering. It is when you touch a note, but so that's one change on it, and obviously we've got white and black keys like you do on a standard keyboard. I think the original only had black keys, didn't it? And it's also got new graphics to help you find your way around it, and I suppose that's because it is all sort of set at 45 degrees and at sort of various angles. So your ADSR envelope, for example, are these four knobs here, not sort of four in a straight line. But once you've sort of worked it out, it's not an issue at all. The internals are exactly the same as the original. It's the same DSP engine, and yes, it's a virtual analog synth. And virtual analogs seem to be getting a bit of a bad rep at the minute on various forums. People saying, well, isn't it just a plugin in a box? And I think that says more about how good plugins are getting than any synths, because if you think about it, Nord leads have been virtual analog since day one, and they're pretty good synths, aren't they? Worth quite a lot of money. So I thought I'd show how virtual analogs have come on, and I'll put it up against the Korg MicroKORG, which is a 20-year-old virtual analog. And I've also been playing with the OB-6 this week. I've got the low frequency expander in the studio, and that's given it 3 additional LFOs and additional envelope and all sorts of different things. And while I've been playing with this, I realized the OB-6 has got a state variable filter, as has the SKULPT. So maybe just chuck them together and see what happens. So we'll start off, I think, by taking a look at this versus the MicroKORG and digital artifacts. Okay, I've got the 3 of them set up with a simple sawtooth, and they all sound pretty decent. You know, it sounds like a sawtooth, doesn't it? So let's have a listen to the MicroKORG first. And when you listen to that, it sounds fine. It sounds like a sawtooth. But then when you listen again, you can hear inside that there's an additional tone. Lots of additional tones. And it's changing per note. And if we take a look at the frequency analysis, you can see there's a load of little weird intermittent harmonics, and I've shown this on a video before, but you might not have seen it. And there, your digital artifacts. It doesn't do it on every key for some reason. There's a few little ones up there. There's some there as well, so it does it on most keys. Okay, so there's not much on that one, but center of the keyboard. These are notes you play a lot. And you've got to listen carefully. You've got it turned up quite loud in here, but if you listen to something like the OB-6, it sounds crisp and clean. Just the single tone. So it's worth putting your headphones on or putting this through some nice speakers or just turning it up loud. But we hear the OB-6 analog, and then we hear the virtual analog on the MicroKORG. Huge difference. It sounds rotten actually when you hear them close together like that. It's just like so open, isn't it, on the OB-6? It's the right tone and the right harmonics. Whereas the MicroKORG sounds a bit awful. And it doesn't matter if you're playing a sort of small gig with a bit of a PA and you've got a guitarist and a drummer. No one's ever going to notice, and I've used that for that exact purpose. But when you get to the studio, if you're doing a dance track, for example, and you want that sound belting out in a club, you're really, really going to notice it. You're gonna notice those weird artifacts. And that's why virtual analogs get a bad rep. Now here, we've got the SKULPT. It's a modern virtual analog. It's not 20 years old like the MicroKORG. The MicroKORG's based on the MS-2000, which came out in 2000, which is 21 years old. So that's old tech, so you wouldn't expect this to sound anything like that, and it doesn't. So if we listen to this, it's nice and clean again, isn't it? Like the OB-6. And after hearing these two together, the Korg really does sound bad, doesn't it? And I'm not having a go at the MicroKORG. I do like it. I think it's a great little synth. They've sold over 100,000 units, and there's a reason for that. It's got loads of sort of synth engines in it. It's got wavetables, it's got the vocoder. It's an excellent, excellent little synth for what it does, but it's not a clean, crisp, really good virtual analog. It doesn't actually sound like an analog synth. So yeah, just doing that really to show anyone who goes, oh, virtual analog, oh, it's a bit rubbish, isn't it? No, it's not. It was, but it was good for its day. But now, and looking at that frequency analysis, we're getting no weird artifacts, are we? We can hear that there aren't any, but it's good to double check. So once you've heard that in the MicroKORG, you can't unhear it. As I say, it doesn't do it all the time on every single sound you play, but that's just a basic patch. I've not tried to make it do that. That's just a simple sawtooth. Okay, so let's sort of put the MicroKORG to one side and take a look at this and the OB-6 and see how similar we can get them to sound. Trying to set these up together on the camera really does sort of drive home the difference in the size, trying to make it so that the sculpt doesn't look like some sort of microscopic little ant compared to the OB-6, which isn't a massive synth itself anyway, is it? But let's take a look at the filters then. So they've both got a state variable 12 dB filter, so let's have a listen to the OB-6. You're not going to hear much doing that, so let's bring in some resonance. And they are different filters. I'm not trying to say the Sculpt is a mini OB-6 by any stretch of the imagination. They do have completely different characters, which is evident as soon as you bring the resonance in. On that, we don't lose any bass. On this, we do. Just like you do on any ladder filter. But we're getting a really nice tone, aren't we? It's a lot more resonant than this one. So you can make them sound very similar, but the idea here is to sort of demonstrate how if you close your eyes and you don't know the sound of the OB-6 and you don't know the sound of the Sculpt, you wouldn't be able to pick out the virtual analog from the analog. So the Sculpt's holding up really well, isn't it? It's got a really nice character actually. It's almost got two resonant peaks. If we take a look at this. I really like that. Let's knock the resonance down a little bit. Yeah, it's really nice, and you can see those sort of ripples on the higher frequencies. It's got a really nice character. They're not the same as I say the filters. This goes from a low pass to a notch to a high pass, and this has got this thing called the morph, and I'll show you what it does using the app. So I'll take the resonance down and just change the morph. So we've got a band pass here, and it moves up to a high pass. But it's a really nice little effect, this. And of course you can modulate that using the modulation envelope or one of the two LFOs, which was the next thing I did. Just a simple sawtooth on the OB-6, changing the filter frequency with the LFO. That's nice, it's got that sort of 12 dB bandpass feel, so let's try it on this. So we're getting a very similar effect. So it's a simple sound and it's doing the sort of things I like. So it sort of demonstrates the sort of things you can do with a sculpt. So then I thought, well, let's have a little play with that sound and just take it a little bit further. So I was getting some really nice big tones out of that, and I thought, well, let's just add a few little parts to it.